covers is stories about covering up for somebody or uncovering secrets. You know, when I first heard covers, I was immediately transported to my childhood.
Yeah?
I don't know if you know.
Big cover guy?
Oh, well, I'm a singer. I don't know if you know that I sing.
I do. I hear you sometimes tapping.
And
yeah.
when I was a much younger person, I used to sing for Network for Young Artists. Does anybody know what that is? Clap it up if you do. She does. And we used to sing songs, but they were karaoke CDs of covers. And immediately I was transported to...
is that Mambo number?
I know you want to leave me, but I refuse to let you go. So I used to sing that song as a little kid. So that's immediately what I thought of.
Wait, one more time?
That's all I got. That's all I got.
That's so cute. I don't know. I think about like all the secrets I have, like where all the bodies are, probably. As a serial killer. No? Okay. I don't know. Covers. I guess cover songs. Like I'm not a big karaoke person, but after enough whiskey, I'll do it. Like what?
Maybe tonight.
Yeah. Maybe tonight. No, please. All right, we're going to get into it. We have 7 storytellers. They've all prepared their stories, and we're very excited. The first storyteller is Clarissa Guevara. Clarissa shares a story about a makeup tutorial gone wrong and how popularity isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Put your hands together for Clarissa.
Hello. I was just a Mexican girl on the border. You know, statistically, I wasn't supposed to make it. I wasn't supposed to move out of my town. I wasn't supposed to go to college nor achieve things. If you ever gone to middle school, you know how horrible it is. But going to middle school at the border, that's horrifying. You know, I used to be severely bullied up to a point where I would want to unalive myself a couple times. So, you know, I would sit in my room depressed and just kind of not wanting, you know, kind of socialize. I was just so sad. And one of the things that just kind of was comforting to me was watching YouTube videos, you know. So at that time, I went ahead and started watching some beautiful white girls on the West Coast city. You know, these gorgeous white girls that did their makeup, they did everything. Like, they went shopping, they did hauls. Like, to me, I was like, whoa. So I would read their comments, and their comments would be like, oh, like, I want to be your friend, or I wish I could hang out with you. I wish, you know, and I wanted that. Like, I wanted someone to, you know, be my friend. I had nobody. So I just wanted a friend, even if it was a stranger on the internet. Don't talk to strangers. But so I built up the courage to do a makeup routine, but it was actually a makeup tutorial. You see, I don't even know the words that I could title this video. So I went to Target, you know, because I didn't know what Ulta was. I thought Ulta was that Ultra toilet paper company, you know? So I went to Target and I picked up my makeup. So I went home, I turned on the camera, and let me tell you, the lighting in my room was this horrible warmth color. And at Target, you have these big white fluorescent lights. You know, you can just see your beautiful skin, right? So as I'm putting on my makeup, I'm putting these eyeshadows. And everybody knows that you got to put on your primer. That's one of the things I bought. You got to put on your primers before you put on anything else. So I put on this pink eyeshadow. Turns out it to be hot pink. It didn't really like mix well with my skin color. And then I went ahead and put on the primer and the foundation that was just very light. It looked like I was pale and I looked like a ghost. But with the hot pink eyeshadow, it looked like I was a clown. So I pressed stop and I just uploaded it, and I just kind of laughed at myself. I thought, that's silly, I'm going to erase it. I went to bed, and then the next day, a person calls me and she tells me, you know, your video. I'm like, what what are you talking about? It's 7 a.m. I'm getting ready for school. Like, just another day of the bullying. And then, like, this girl calls me and she's like, yeah, your video, like, people are talking about you. And I was like, what? I go on my laptop and this video, and back then it was very popular to get a couple hundred views. So I had a couple hundred views in my videos, and I thought, that's it. I'm gonna be rich. I'm gonna build generational wealth here. Like, I don't have to be, bullied anymore. So, I was like, darn, but I still have to go to school today. So I went to school that day, and all I could hear is people just, oh my goodness, you're that YouTuber, and they would invite me to parties. But it went from, ay, va esa negra, from across the hallway to, hey, do you want to go to a party? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then I'm like, okay, I te guacho. Like, they'll be like, I know chamos. Entonces I'm like, okay. But then my mom wouldn't, like, she wouldn't let me, And I thought my mom's, like, at that time she saved me because she knew what type of people these were, So I would sit at the edge of my bed, just kind of thinking. And I wasn't sad that my mom wouldn't let me go because, I was used to not hanging out with anybody. So I would sit at the edge of my bed just thinking like, wow, like I just want somebody to share secrets with. I just want to connect with somebody, So after that, I just thought like, well, it's not about any of this. It wasn't about the eyeshadow. So this company reaches out to me and they told me like if I could promote their retainers. I'm like, okay, like, well, I don't have bad teeth, but like I could use some whitening strips, like, hello. So I didn't go ahead with, like, they wanted me to promote and they would pay me, but I'm like, this doesn't feel right. So I just didn't go for it. So I just thought of, well, this isn't about makeup. I don't really like makeup. I don't like showing people how to do makeup because I don't know how to do it. I wanted to create content that just kind of connected with people, that people could relate to me. And, a couple years ago, that's what I started doing. And yeah, that's my story.
Wow.
Dang. Have you ever gone viral?
I was going to ask you the same thing.
Really?
I've never gone viral, but if I did go viral, I think it's for singing covers of that. Temptations, what do you think? Was that pretty good?
I think you should do it. I recently had a clip go off and everybody was making fun of how I say Laredo. Because I say it like, oh, those California white girls. I'm a graham cracker. All right.
Our next storyteller is Donald Mason. Donald shares a story about his call to music and how some songs need to be covered.
Yeah, give it up for Donald Mason.
Thanks to all those that are commenting. So, what is talent? You'll have some talent, right? When do you know when you have talent? When somebody tells you or you discover it on your own? And what do you do with it when you find it? So, of course, I found some talent through some weird ways through my voice. Started singing in churches and found my voice dropping before I got to middle school. Was the first bass in our varsity choir. My soprano's showing right now. Tony would be proud. But, there's a difference between being successful with like a choir. I mean, I was on a national championship choir. I got to sing with the Backstreet Boys because Brian Littrell went to my high school because he wrote a song for his mom. And I was on the Acousticats in college, which they got popular on the sing-off way after I was in the group. But you get this feeling that maybe I am good, but then what is it going to take to break into the music industry? So lo and behold, this show called American Idol. And this guy, if you can go way back into the history of American Idol, Sanjaya, see, popular, he made it to the top 8. And so again, you don't want to put yourself on a pedestal. I was like, surely I can out-sing Sanjaya. Like I knew how the TV industry worked. So I go to Charleston, South Carolina, ready to sing Ain't No Sunshine. It's one of my legendary songs. They weren't hearing it. Cut. You get this wristband and they just take a pair of scissors. Boom. Once the wristband's gone, you're gone. It's like one lifeline. So that was hard to take, and there's much more to talk about that. So I was kind of, licking my wounds, and there was another opportunity in Denver, and my sister lives in Colorado Springs, so I went to Denver. I was ready with another Saturday night, and man, they ain't hearing Sam Cooke. Another snip. So I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to be famous. And so I'm sitting at my desk at the University of Kentucky in Lexington, and there's this guy that rolls into the office. I work with a bunch of admissions coming into the school, and this guy, his name is DeBron Thomas. I just had this vibe that this dude has to be talented in something. So we were just talking, and I said, well, what's your name? He said, DeBron. I was like, what do you do? Like, tell me something that you're good at. He's like, well, I've been playing guitar since I was 14. I was like, I knew it. You can always just know. So I said, well, tell me some of your inspirations. He said, Eddie Hazel and Jimi Hendrix, of course. And I told him I love Bill Withers and Stevie Wonder. So we found that common bond on Bill Withers. So we decided to jam in the dorm room. And this dude is an absolute beast on guitar. And I'm starting to realize that's what it takes to really be talented. But I'm like, I got to get this guy in a band. So we put a band together. The band is Soul Funkin' Dangerous. After a few drinks, it changes. And we had to find some people, so we found a group. But then we have to go play a gig. So we rehearsed all the time, and we walked the streets of Lexington. This is a college town, big college town, and we couldn't get a gig. I mean, I had a fro at the time, and DeBron is 6'4" with a guitar on his back. Like, surely we're not just fronting and like imposter syndrome. So finally we go to Tin Roof, and they grant us a Saturday night, which I already had a song prepared for that. So a week before, anybody know Amos Lee? So I ran into Amos Lee at his concert, and we were going to perform Street Corner Preacher and Give It Up. And I told him, he probably didn't care, but I knew that I told him. So May 9th, 2009, graduated from college that day, so I was feeling good. Show up at the Tin Roof, 125 people there. So, about how many people are here? Maybe a little bit less. There's a lot of people here tonight. And so, I mean, I've handled my nerves a little bit better tonight than I did there. I was like, I am having stage fright before I've even performed. But you get on, the music starts playing, you get past that first song, and the music just flows through. Any musician out there, anybody that's been to a concert, you kind of get that vibe. So check mark, we made it through, played another Saturday night, and Bill Withers and all this stuff. So finally, all these venues were telling us, well, we can't get any more gigs because we didn't have that first gig. So we start picking up some gigs, and people start coming to our show. Our name didn't hurt. What's the Soul Funkin' Dangerous group? And we had an elephant, purple elephant for a logo. And so people were like, yeah. So hopefully we didn't disappoint. But I was like, okay, so now we're this cover band, and, we need more. So I started looking at some people that were coming into Lexington, and saw Afro Man was coming into Lexington. Of course, he sang Because I Got High and all that stuff. But little do you know, he plays a double neck guitar, and he's actually really talented. So I called Mark at Cosmic Charlie's, which is it's kind of like Paper Tiger here. And we'd had the little cred, so we did get that opening gig. And so we did the show. There's like 300 or 400 people at that gig. I was less nervous then because we were a little bit more confident. Afro Man rolls up with this white mink jacket, and first few songs he kind of forgets, and I'm like, well, nobody cares because it's Afro Man on stage. So after the show, this pile of tobacco starts piling up because he's cutting all these Swisher Sweets, trying to make the blunts for a post-show celebration. Of course, just like anything, Colt 45 and some zigzags were also there. So it was a lot of fun. So then I'm like, okay, who else is coming to town? And now that we have a little bit of a reputation of this party funk band, the Wailers were coming into town. So if you thought Afro Man was a party, they have a religion that celebrates in the middle of the show. Like, they will just like take turns and make the religious circle, and you know, we all get closer to Jah, and then we keep going. So again, you know, this just fantasy of getting on stage and, you know, becoming something, you know, who knows what's going to happen? Like, to win a Grammy, is that really the chase? Or to open up for some notable people, like y'all have heard of Afro Man and, you know, the Wailers. We've opened up for some other people, some close calls. We played a ton of festivals. People would come up to me and say, is that really your name? I have to say that out loud. I'm like, yeah, unfortunately. So, you know, this path of feeling like I was defeated, I was never going to have an opportunity to sing, never going to be able to perform, transforming from a choir bass because I didn't choose to go down the opera path, finding DeBron and making Soul Funk and Dangerous. And now people ask me if I'll ever bring back the Purple Elephant. Well, just like Hamilton, just you wait.
Wow.
Can you say Soul, Funk, and Dangerous 3 times fast?
I want to hear Donald sing.
I just want to hear him talk more.
That's
just like,
cool.
Can you do some Boyz II Men stuff? Hey, baby. Like, no. That's just for me. Our next storyteller is Sofia Saenz. Sofia shares a story about a forced audition and how sometimes we will do almost anything for a friend.
Let's give it up for Sofia.
So it was July of 2013, and I randomly got an email from NBC letting me know that there was going to be a casting call for The Voice in Austin. I don't sing, but my best friend at the time and my girlfriend now has always sung. She sang in backyard parties and graduations and had talked about doing music for a long time but had never done anything yet. So I forwarded her the email in hopes that it would light a fire under her and get her to audition. Almost immediately, I got a call from her. Absolutely not. I can't do this. I don't know what song I would sing. I can't do it. So after talking to her for a little while, calming her down, stroking her ego a little bit, she finally agreed. And she said, I'll only do it if you come with me. I said, okay, well, not a big deal, right? Just a trip to Austin and some moral support before and after the show. It turns out that's not what she was asking me. So the casting call was being held at the convention center in Austin, and nobody could go in or out of the convention center unless you had a badge and you were actually auditioning. So what she was asking me to do was to sign up to audition for The Voice with her, so that I could hold her hand through the whole process all the way up until she had to sing. I knew that I was never actually going to sing in front of any of these people, so I said, sure, why not? So we loaded up in her Ford Explorer and drove to Austin for the audition. And when we got to the convention center, it felt like there were thousands of people already crowding the area. We made it through all of the lines for check-in and security, name badges, and then they corral us all into this huge room of hopeful singers. There's people on the walls practicing singing. They've got papers in hand. And there's rows and rows and rows of people just waiting for their shot. So they're taking each row back into this other smaller room, and that's where the auditions are actually happening. And so we're waiting and waiting for about 3 hours. And then we get to the 3-hour mark, and I notice that our row is about to stand up. So this is where I had to explain to Clarissa that my journey at The Voice was coming to an end. There were a lot of protest and probably some tears, but I gave her my best hype man speech and I said, "You've got this." So I headed back to the car to refill the parking meter, And I maintained that when I got to the car, that parking meter still had time on it, but we also definitely had a ticket on our car. That should have been some foreshadowing for me for the rest of the day's events, but at this point, I had no idea what was to come. So I cursed at the parking meter and walked back to the convention center to people watch and wait for her to come out. As soon as she came out of the audition, I saw her face and immediately I knew it did not go well. She said, "I did horribly. I don't want to be here. I just want to get out of here and pretend like this didn't happen. Let's go have a good time." We had tickets to the roller derby that night, and that's what I was there for. So I said, "All right, let's go." So we walked out of the convention center, and if you had seen us, you would have thought that she made it to the next round and was going to be on TV. That's how happy we were walking out of that convention center. Skipping with our parking ticket in hand, we got back to the car. Clarissa puts the key in the ignition, and the car won't start. The battery is dead. In downtown Austin on a Saturday with more than usual traffic on a one-way street, and we have no jumper cables. So frantically, we start Googling AAA-like services because, of course, neither of us have AAA. Between us, we probably had a couple $100s because we were in our 20s. So we find this guy on Facebook that's a mobile mechanic, and he'll come out to the car and charge the battery for us. He was pretty affordable, so we said, okay. The guy gets there and he hooks up the battery to his little machine and he starts charging it. And he's charging and charging and charging, and the battery just will not stay on. So he starts explaining to us what feels like the absolute worst case scenario. You need an entirely new battery. So he tells us if you get a new battery, I can switch it out for you, no problem. And he starts explaining to Clarissa that there's an AutoZone about 1.5 miles to 2 miles away. He says, I can charge it up just enough. If you go fast and don't stop, we can get there. So we're like, okay. We jump in the car and we're hauling down the road past this guy or following this guy. And we're on South Congress in Austin, an intersection away from the AutoZone. I can see the AutoZone. And all of a sudden, in the middle of South Congress, the car dies. So immediately, the guy that we'd been following pulls off into a parking lot and comes to help us, try to push us off the road. At that point, somebody else off of the street had already come to our aid and was trying to help us get into a parking lot. Clarissa finally steers it into the Wells Fargo parking lot, and by the time we got out of the car, the mystery man off the street wasn't even around. We never even got to thank that man for helping us get off of the street because he was gone by the time we opened the doors. But the mechanic is like, look, the AutoZone is right here. If you just want to get in the back of my car, I'll take you the rest of the way. We'll get the battery changed out, no problem. At this point, we were desperate enough to get in the man's car, so we got in the back seat, and we get to the AutoZone. Luckily, they had the battery because, of course, we didn't call ahead. We got the battery changed out, and we are just eternally grateful to this man. All of the worst case scenarios are popping in our head. We could have been stuck in Austin with a tow truck and a rental car and all sorts of hundreds of dollars that we didn't have. So we try to offer the man more money for his time and his effort, and he tells us, don't worry about it. Just pay it forward. So because of that mechanic and the mystery man on the street, we ended up making it to the roller derby on time. And we paid it forward once we got to 6th Street and bought everybody shots. And even though the voice didn't work out for Clarissa, a year later she was playing in cover bands all over San Antonio and even opened up for Sean Paul at Oyster Bake a few years ago. So she is doing music now and is officially a musician.
Talk about a memorable trip to Austin, huh?
I know, right? Mystery man.
Wow. Okay, I have to ask you, would you rather compete in a roller derby or would you compete on The Voice?
Should I? Okay, yeah, I'll beat the crap out of somebody. That sounds fun. Do I really have to get on the skates? Maybe I would sing. I don't know. I'm not that bad of a singer. I feel like I've misrepresented my voice.
Okay, you all in for a treat. I don't know if you noticed, but our next storytellers is a famous person.
What?
It's Davey Jackson.
He's not famous.
Davey Jackson shares a story about a lesson most of us learn in our early 20s. Never order shots called Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Ugh.
Ugh, so gross. I almost threw up just when you said that. Hey, guys, let's welcome my good friend, Davey Jackson.
Hey, y'all. Rude. So, 5 homeschooled guys walk into a bar. That's it. That's the whole joke. No, but I'm going to tell you the story of how I had to invent a cover story to save my best friend's wedding. Carl was my childhood best friend. We met in homeschool group. We were both homeschooled. Yeah, I helped him with his Eagle Scout project. Just a lot of real homeschooly stuff. But Carl was getting married. He was the first one in our friend group to get married, and it was the night before his wedding, and we knew that we had to send Carl off in style. So we decided that we were going to have an epic bachelor party night, me and 4 other homeschool dudes. Yeah. So we all pile into the minivan and head off to the bar. Quick side note about this particular minivan. My sweet, sweet mother found out that we were going to go out for a night on the town and recommended that we borrow her friend's minivan for the trip. And homeschool guys love a minivan. We absolutely love it. It's our favorite thing. We're sluts for minivans, you know? So we get in the minivan and we head to the bar. We get to the first bar of the evening. We pile out of the minivan. We walk into the bar and this place is jumping, y'all. The music was pounding. People were dancing and getting drunk. And we looked so out of place. So out of place. Most of us had our shirt tucked into our jeans. One guy was wearing homemade pants. We were lost. We were very, very lost. And we didn't know what to do. Most people our age had gotten to experience the party life in high school. That's where they started drinking. That's where they started partying. But we were homeschooled. And we were 22 years old at this time. We had no idea what to do. So my idea was, well, let's go talk to the bartender and explain the situation to him. And surely he'll point us in the right direction. So we go up to the bartender. We explain that we are here for a party, right? What should we do? We've heard shots are good. Maybe we could start with some shots. And he agreed with us and recommended a 4 horseman shot. Now, if you don't know what's in a 4 horseman, it's 4 different liquors: Jim Beam, Jameson, Jack Daniels, and Johnny Walker. It is a nightmare in a shot glass. And that's what he recommended. Now, up until this point, my only experience drinking was with Carl when he turned 21 and we went to the liquor store. He went inside. I had to wait in the car because I wasn't old enough yet. And he bought us a 12-pack of Smirnoff Ice. Yeah. Which we took to the lake and got drunk in a canoe, which in retrospect is kind of weird. But that was the only experience we had, and we have a bartender recommending these shots, and so of course we agree, and we do a round of 4 horsemen. Now, once again, 0 experience drinking, so we decide, let's just keep it going with these. Might as well. And so about an hour later, we are just an absolute mess. I don't even know how many shots we had. I had at least 8 or 9. They were small drinks. I thought, yeah, this is fine. At this point, Carl is crying. Not sad tears, happy tears, because he was getting married, and he was excited about getting married. Also, he was a virgin and had been saving himself for marriage, so I think he was also a little excited about the sex and maybe a little nervous. But we decided it's time to get Carl out of here, right? So we leave the bar, we pile back into the minivan, and we head home. And on the drive back, about an hour-long drive, halfway through, a couple guys in the car start not feeling great. And Carl felt the worst. He was, the bachelor, and so we had to make sure that he had the best time. So he did the most shots, of course. And he starts feeling sick and saying, guys, I think I might be sick. So we hand him a plastic trash bag, which we had on deck because it's a homeschool minivan. And just tell Carl, if you're going to get sick, just do it in the plastic trash bag. Pretty clear instructions. Carl did get sick quite a few times. Completely missed the trash bag and ended up throwing up all over himself in the floor of the minivan. So at this point, obviously, we've got to pull the minivan over. We open the door to get Carl out so he can, throw up with dignity. But Carl immediately takes his pants off for some reason and goes on a little excursion on the side of the highway. He was a mess. He was alternating between throwing up and laying down in the grass and kept telling us to just leave him there. But if you know anything about homeschoolers, it's no man left behind. We finally got Carl back into the minivan, and we got home. And, of course, at this point, we've got to figure out how to clean up this minivan because it was a disaster on the inside. So we cleaned it up as best we could, but I don't know if y'all are aware of whiskey throw-up. It's pretty persistent. It's hard to get out. We went to return the minivan the next morning, a few hours before the wedding, and my sweet mom, the first thing she noticed was the smell and demanded an answer. I had to think quick, obviously, and so I explained to her that on the way home from the bachelor party, the group was feeling a little hungry, so we stopped by Sonic and got chili cheese dogs. And someone must have spilled a chili cheese dog in the minivan, and that was definitely what the smell was. She wasn't buying it. So she looped in the groom's mom. So now it's two moms against me, demanding to know, why does this car smell like hot vomit? I stuck by the story, though, y'all. Chili cheese dog till I die. And I never, ever told my mom the truth. And so I'm really hoping she doesn't watch this. As a matter of fact, if y'all could please block her from the TPR channel. And if she does see this, Mom, I'm sorry, and I love you so much. Carl did end up getting married. He made it to the wedding. The day was saved. But he threw up at least 5 times in the bushes right outside the wedding chapel before the ceremony. Yeah. And he never had another 4 horsemen shot after that. Quite a few Smirnoff Ice, though. He definitely kept going with that. Thank you all so much. I'm Davey Jackson.
Yuck.
They say liquor before beer. Or
No, liquor, something quicker.
beer
right?
before liquor. Never been sicker.
Beer before liquor. Thank you. Is that my mom? That's what it sounded like, a life lesson. Clap it up if you've had a 4 horseman shot. I'm just curious. Oh, you guys are still alive. Cool. Yeah, that sounds so gross. After the show at Sojourn. Before we get to our next story, I've got to warn you that it's a heavy topic. This is a trigger warning. There is suicide in it. So the person that is sharing it is very brave in sharing it. So just if anybody needs to excuse themselves, I invite you to do that now. But it is a serious story. Okay? So with that said, our next storyteller is Sara Hegge. Sara shares a story about the secrets we keep in order to protect those we love.
Let's welcome Sara.
So this is a story about how covering the truth can sometimes come from a place of love or even deep sacrifice. So about 6 years ago now, I was preparing to take the biggest exam of my career and maybe even life. And I had undergone years of training for it and kind of prepped my family and friends by saying, hey, I'm going to go off the grid for a few months before this exam. I may not be available to you as I normally should be or am. And I just want you to know that. And they were very supportive of it, and I appreciated that. But so I used the time and studied about up to 18 hours a day for this exam. And the day came, and the exam was horrible, as I thought it would be. It was 8 hours of pure hell and torture. And at the end of it, I called my support system. I called my sister first, and I said, hey, I just finished. And she was like, great, congratulations, I'm so proud of you. And then I called my best friend next, and she said the same thing, but she sounded a little off too. She was like, have you talked to your family yet? Have you called your parents? And I was like, no, they're next on my list though, so I'll call them next. And she's like, okay, good. And so I called my mom next, and she was like, I need a conference. There's something, I'm really proud of you, but there's something that we need to tell you, and I need a conference in your dad to this phone call. And if you have geriatric parents like myself, and they try and use technology to do any type of event like this, you know that there's going to be an issue. So needless to say, I had to attempt to do this three-way call myself, but and called conferenced my dad into this phone call, but he wasn't able to answer. And by the time all this happened, I got super frustrated. I was like, Mom, just out with it. What is going on? Just tell me. And so she said, as I'm driving back home after this 8-hour long exam, she said, it's your brother. He's dead. He died 3 days ago. And we didn't tell you because we knew that you had this exam that you could only take once a year. And so we kept it from you. And in the age of social media, you know that it's really, really hard to keep a death a secret, especially if it's a young person that is fully networked in. And but they kept it from me because they knew that this exam was only offered once a year, and they wanted me to succeed at it. And so I respected that, and I appreciated that, but I was in total shock. And this was sort of compounded by the fact that the very next day I had to literally move across the country from the East Coast to the West Coast for work. And horrendously convenient was the fact that my family is from Minnesota, directly in the middle between the East and West Coasts. And so I was able to have a nice little layover for the wake and funeral before moving to another establishment. So, but I was like, I was still in shock, and I was like, what? How did this happen? How did he die? What is going on? And they were like, we don't know. The autopsy won't come back for quite a while. All we know is that we found him in his room with half a box of Franzia wine, and we think maybe he just drunk himself to death, which interestingly enough had happened to my mother's brother as well. And I was like, geez, that's insane. And I really had difficulty processing it, but I had to pack up my entire life and move across the country and stop for this wake and funeral and just keep going. So I made it to the Midwest, and I was like, there's got to be something more, and there was something more. In addition to not telling me that he had died 3 days prior to my exam, he had also tried to kill himself twice in the preceding months, but my family knew that I was trying as hard as I could for this exam, and they wanted me to focus. And so they didn't tell me this information. They covered it in order to help me succeed at this huge, huge career move. And so I was like, well, there's got to be something more. So I got a hold of his smartphone and went through his search history, which if you go through the search history of a 25-year-old male, that's very brave, right? So nonetheless, I went through this search history, and I did find that the night before he was found dead, he had actually Googled how to commit suicide. It was actually the second to the last thing that he Googled. The very last thing that he Googled was a string of unintelligible consonants, which roughly equated to skirbish, which was gibberish that I found darkly hilarious because he was likely in the throes of death at that time. But famous last words, not so much. But nonetheless, that's what I found. But I kept this information for myself. I covered this information because my family was in the mindset where my dad thought, ignorance was bliss. He was happy to think that my brother had maybe accidentally drank himself to death. And my mother is a devout Catholic, and if he thought he had done this on purpose, she would probably think he would spend eternity in purgatory or something like that. And so I thought if I covered this up and if I kept it to myself, then maybe I could, protect their peace in that sense. And so I did, and I was able to keep this covered for more than a year. But what I didn't know is that my mother had been awaiting some toxicology results from the autopsy, and about a year later, she had received them and called me from my new home on the West Coast and said, "Hey, these toxicology results came back, and it turns out that your brother had toxic levels of diphenhydramine or Benadryl in his system when he died. So he likely overdosed on Benadryl on purpose." And I wasn't shocked at all because I already knew. But she was understandably devastated. But I told her, I'm sorry, Mom, but I already knew. I suspected, and she was like, "Okay, that's okay. I understand." And she understood because she did a similar thing to protect me, and then I did a similar thing to protect her and my family, and we both had this type of mutual respect, which was covering the truth, but out of a place of love. That's all I got. Thanks.
Wow. What a story. Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. I want to take
one more time for Sarah.
If I can, I want to take a moment to just say that the suicide prevention hotline is 988. If you or anybody you know needs some help, please give that number a call. Our next storyteller is very special and near and dear to my heart because he's my barber. Okay, if you know anything about downtown, it is got a barber shop called Puro Handsome, and Tommie Gonzalez is going to share a story about when you go to a barber, and I guess any story, it doesn't have to be a barber, any hairstylist. There's a great deal of trust, right, that you build with the person, because you go there, you expect them to know what you want, and to trust them that they're going to do that, right? Well, this story is about Tommie trusting himself. This is a story about a cover song that uncovered the truth that he probably knew all along.
Please welcome to the stage Tommie Gonzalez.
Good evening. The very first time that I heard that little voice inside me, you know what I'm talking about, the one that calls you out on your bullshit. The very first time that I heard that voice was 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, in Oslo, Norway. I had recently left a career in television, and television is all I had ever done since I was like 16 years old. I found myself leaving television and starting a record label, which was a dream for me, something that I'd always wanted to do. And I found myself in Oslo, Norway, working with a band from there. And the first release we put out, the band's making their debut. It's a big music festival weekend in Oslo. I didn't realize it, but that weekend in Norway, they have their version of USA Today newspaper. It's called Dagbladet. And in the culture, arts, music section covering the festival, there was a picture of me that I didn't know about. And there was a headline written in Norwegian that was later translated for me that said, "The American who could hear the sound of Norway." And oh, so cringe. So cringe. But whatever, we were there to party, and we're going to go with it, right? I'm an American in the Nordics, so I'm embracing this. And everybody's super nice to me. I'm super exotic there. So the music festival is full of like PR stuff. We got to make radio appearances and magazine appearances and interviews and all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of work, and you got to stick to a tight schedule. So one of the things we had to do was we ended up at the NRK, which is Norway's national radio, and the band I'm working with is doing an appearance on the show. Now remember, this is festival weekend, so there's a lot of hoopla going on. There's a lot of vibes, and don't forget, I'm the American who can hear the sound of Norway. So we go into the studio, and I'm there, and everybody's very, very nice to me, and speaking English to me, and I'm learning tusen takk and varsågod and takk takk and hi hi, and I'm learning all these little Nordic pleasantries that they're famous for. But when the on-air light comes on, it was a hurricane of Norwegian that I didn't understand anymore. And I kind of just sat back in the studio and took it all in. But at the end of the radio show, one of the things that I didn't really pick up on, but kind of started to gather, was this band that I'm working with had to do a cover song of one of the songs that's currently charting on the top 40 charts. For me, I'm a born and bred punk. I'm anti-authority. I'm a jerk. So I really want nothing to do with that. But it's not my band, technically. It's my band financially. So they do the cover, and while it's happening, that little voice inside me speaks up, and it says, "Damn it, dude, this is lame. This is not what you wanted. This is not what we set out to do. This is not what we spent all this money for. This is not what we came out here to do." But I was being gracious. And these boys were popular. They'd been in other bands. They'd been through the machinations. So I said, let's just go, right? We're here to party. Let's just keep the party going. And the party kept going for 3 years. And I did get to do a lot of cool stuff. We shot music videos all over the Nordics, shot music videos in Germany. We went to Haiti twice, went to Iceland for a week, and almost had the National Guard called on me. And everything was really cool, and we were still partying, and I was still living my dream, and everything felt really good. And then 3 years later, I'm at a meeting with Spotify, and this big digital music meeting summit is taking place in a very, very posh hotel on the east side of Berlin. And I walk in, and there's a gorgeous spread and really, really cool little sandwiches with cucumbers that are delicious. But they've also got like this never-ending supply of gin and tonics that started at like 1 in the afternoon. Jen and I broke up a long time ago, but we reacquainted ourselves that day, regrettably, or fortunately, however you want to look at it. Anyway, I got pretty tanked, and through the meeting, I'm listening to their dog and pony show and their presentation, and I used to sell media. I used to sell television. I've worked with Nielsen. I've worked with SoundScan. I can make a #1 story out of anything. But I'm listening to this, and they're telling us how to monetize new artists and all these new features that are going to come out. Now, this is about 6 years ago. And that little voice inside me speaks up again. And it says the same thing. Oye, vato, this is not what we set out to do. And this time, instead of saying, cálmate, on-air lights on. I said, you know what, you're right. You're absolutely right. I don't want anything to do with this anymore. So I packed up my stuff and I walked out of the meeting, and all my friends and peers that I had been working for the past 3 years with, we'd done music videos, we'd done PR, we'd taken over other territories together. They're looking at me like, where are you going? And I give them the sign like, go catch me at the spot that we always hang out at afterwards, right? I'm gonna go finish drinking. So I walk out of the meeting and I go to my favorite beer garden and I sit down and I let out this huge sigh of relief. But at that same moment, that little voice spoke up again and said, now what? You were so focused on being a jerk and so focused on being anti-authority, you didn't think about what the next step was. And by this time, I'd learned to listen to that little voice a little closer. So I said, you're right. What's next? So we sat there for another minute and I started thinking, you know, I really, what was my reason for exiting the music business? And really the reason for me exiting the music business was digital music. I found no joy in it anymore. I found no excitement in it anymore. I didn't have that cool feeling of releasing a record anymore when it comes out digitally. There's nothing tangible about it. So I deduced that I really hated digital music. And what I wanted to do was figure out something that you couldn't download, something that you couldn't go online, click a button, convert, and have delivered to your house that afternoon. And all I could think about was a haircut. I've been cutting hair for 6 years now. I own 2 barbershops in downtown, and that little voice and I talk every day. Thank you.
Dang. Oh, I thought you guys were going to embrace. And he's like, actually, no. You know, one year I quit 7 jobs.
7 jobs?
Yeah. It was, I was like, I don't know, like after the first, I was like, oh, I could just leave. And then I just kept doing it. I'm like, oh, you want me to do what? How about I quit? I was like 19. Anyway, the end. Give it up for Tommie one more time.
Yeah, I just want to plug Tommie one more time. You can go to purohandsome.com and get your hair cut.
Yeah. Whenever I'm ready to cut my hair. It's been 2 years. Yeah. All right, tight. Let's all cut our hair together. Is that a date or okay?
Hey.
That's a spring break. All right.
That's a spring break for sure.
That's a spring break we needed. Are you guys sad? We only have one more storyteller.
Gosh, we made it. Made it, y'all. Final storyteller.
That's the end. Okay, we'll stay here all night if you're not sad. I turned into my mom. Okay. Oh, you guys aren't happy? Okay. Our final storyteller of the night is Will Mosley. Will's going to share a story about boredom and trouble that comes with idle hands and how you should always assume that someone is watching.
Let's give it up for Will, y'all.
I don't know what your experience with the military is. It's nothing like what you think. See, about 15, 16 years ago, I was in my late teens, early 20s, and lost 2 basketball scholarships. And my family was like, you need some direction. You need some structure. So you should join the military. And I was like, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that. It's not what I said. I was like, that sounds terrible. I'm not doing that. It's too much structure. I don't want that. People are going to yell at you. I got drugged to a recruiter's office. Ended up in basic training. I got yelled at a lot. I thought the entire military was going to be like that. I thought you get out of training, you go to your base, you get yelled at all the time. And it's not. All that respect you guys have for soldiers and military service members, stop that. Don't do it. I don't know if you ever noticed, but when you tell a soldier or a service member, thank you for your service, they're like, ugh. It's because if you really knew what we did behind that gate, you wouldn't trust us. So I get to my first base, and I'm expecting to get yelled at. I'm expecting somebody to show up, because when you get to basic training, the first thing that happens to you is when you get off the bus, there's a mean man yelling at you. And I was like, that's going to happen again. And it didn't. They gave me my own room. I was getting paid regularly. Like, you're in barracks and it's like college dorms, but you have money. So you can only imagine the types of debauchery that take place in that type of scenario. A bunch of other screw-ups like myself, all put under one roof with money and a liquor store. I maxed out my first credit card on liquor. That's what it's like. Like, so usually when you tell a service member, thank you for your service, and they look very tired and annoyed, it's because they're hungover. In my first 3 months, one of my friends, a good friend of mine, one of my best friends, we're going to change his name for this story, just in case. We're going to call him Troy. That's his real name. We were all hanging out in the common area in the barracks. There's like a common area for all the people that spend all their money on liquor that can't afford TVs. They put one in the area for all of us. And we're hanging out in there. You know, there's pool tables, vending machines, TVs, all kind of stuff like that. And, you know, in your early 20s, late teens, you know, you're experiencing life. You got a little money now. You know, girls like you, so you try to have as many as you can. And he had a few. One of them was a cop on post, and she was also a thief. She stole his cell phone. And in a drunken rage, because we were never sober, he took a pool ball and threw it through a vending machine. I was like, fuck. So I was like, dog, we got to get out of here. So me being the only stable, sober, or drunk person, I escorted him back to his barracks, because we were at my freaking barracks when he threw the ball through the vending machine. On our way out, he sees a classic Ducati, and then he kicks it over. Yeah, it was my roommate's. My roommate asked me about it the next day, and he was like, man, did you know what happened on my bike? I was like, nah. You know, like a liar. I get Troy back to his room. Make it through the weekend. Monday rolls around. I'm like, oh, man, they didn't say anything. We're good. Tuesday, 10 o'clock. I'm already through the morning, you know, already, you know, starting my work for the day. Next thing I know, I'm getting called to my first sergeant's office. And if you've been in the military, your first sergeant, that is the highest ranking enlisted person in your unit. And me, very far from the highest ranking enlisted person in my unit, has to go stand in front of him and figure out why I've been summoned to his room. He's asking me about the pool ball. And he's like, I already know everything that happened. I just want you to tell me what happened. I was like, I'm not telling you what happened. There's fucking cameras, dog. Like, he's like, you swore an oath. You need to hold on to your oath and uphold your oath and tell us what happened. I'm like, I'm not about to betray my friend. That's crazy. Like, if I need $15, my friend will give me $15. The Army will tell me to wait till the 1st of the 15th. If I need liquor, I can go to my friend's room, steal his liquor. The Army makes me pay for my own liquor. You understand what I'm saying? Like, friends over everything. So he proceeds to lecture me for a good 15, 20 minutes, trying to get me to tell him what happened. I'm like, nah, fam, I'm a thug. I'm from these streets. I don't snitch. And he was like, well, the only thing that matters to soldiers is their time and their money. So they took both. I could afford less liquor. But my friends had it, so I was good. So when I tell you, if you want to send your kids to the military, don't do that. You will have spent 18 years molding this person into who you want them to be, just to send them off to become an alcoholic. So that's where we are. I've never told this story before, and this is going to be the first time that Troy and my roommate have heard this. I don't think everything will be the same ever again. So I just, yeah, that's it.